In today's video, we're going to talk about interoception secrets why your autistic partner can't sense his own growing emotional storms. So we're going to talk about something that explains a lot of confusion inside neurodiverse relationships, especially when one partner is autistic and the other one is not. So if you've ever said something like, well, it came out of nowhere, he was fine 5 minutes ago, or why didn't he just tell me he was getting overwhelmed, or why do meltdowns happen so suddenly? Then today's topic may completely change how you understand what's happening. We're going to talk about interoception. Interoception is the brain's ability to sense what's happening inside the body. And for many autistic individuals, this internal sensing system does not work the same way it does for neurotypical people. In practical terms, that means an autistic partner may not feel the warning signs that emotional pressure is building. They don't notice their heart rate increasing, muscles tightening, breathing becoming shallow, their nervous system entering stress mode. So the emotional pressure builds quietly, silently, and invisibly until suddenly it explodes into a meltdown. And from outside, it looks baffling. From inside, it can feel like a light switch suddenly flipped. So today, I want to walk you through what interoception actually is, why many autistic people have reduced interoceptive awareness, why emotional check-ins often fail in neurodiverse couples, what the pressure buildup looks like physiologically, and most importantly, practical tools couples can use to bridge this gap. Because once you understand this, resentment often turns into understanding, and that shift alone can change the trajectory of your marriage. Let's talk about the sixth sense most people never think about. Most people are familiar with the five senses, right? Sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. But neuroscience recognizes another sensory system called interoception. Interoception is the body's internal monitoring system. It constantly scans signals for heart rate, muscle tension, stomach sensations, breathing rhythm, blood pressure, internal temperature, hunger and thirst. Your brain receives these signals and translates them into feelings and emotional awareness. For example, you notice your chest tightening. Your brain interprets that as anxiety. Or you notice your stomach dropping. Your brain interprets that as fear. Or you notice warmth and relaxation in your chest. Your brain interprets that as calm or affection. Most neurotypical people experience these signals subconsciously throughout the day. They don't think about it. It runs on autopilot. Their body simply tells them when stress is rising. And that internal feedback gives them time to self-regulate before things escalate. But here's the key point. For many autistic people, those signals are faint, delayed, or completely absent. Now let's talk about interoception and autism. Research in autism increasingly points to differences in how the brain processes internal sensory information. In many people on the autism spectrum, the brain regions responsible for interoception, particularly areas connected to the insula, process internal body signals differently. And that can lead to reduced awareness of heart rate changes, difficulty detecting muscle tension, delayed recognition of fatigue, and difficulty identifying emotional states. This is why many autistic adults say things like, well, I didn't know I was stressed until I completely shut down. Or, I didn't realize I was overwhelmed until it was too late. Their nervous system may already be approaching meltdown territory before their conscious mind recognizes that stress is rising. So when the neurotypical wife asks, well, how are you feeling right now? The autistic husband may honestly respond with, oh, I'm fine. Because in that moment, he doesn't feel the storm forming. Now let's talk about the invisible pressure cooker. We're going to look at what's happening physiologically. Imagine a pressure cooker on the stove. Heat builds slowly, pressure builds slowly, but if the pressure valve is not functioning properly, there is no release mechanism. The pressure continues building silently. Then suddenly, the lid explodes. That's often what emotional meltdowns look like neurologically. Here's a common sequence. First, the autistic nervous system begins absorbing stressors. Those could include sensory overload, social demands, decision fatigue, emotional conflict, cognitive overload, and each stressor increases autonomic nervous system activation. Heart rate begins increasing, muscles begin tightening, breathing changes, adrenaline rises. But because interoception is weak, The brain does not register these signals early. So the individual just continues operating normally. They continue working, they can continue talking, they continue problem solving. Meanwhile, the nervous system is approaching overload. Then, one small event occurs. Perhaps it's just a question from the NT wife, or some kind of perceived criticism, or a sudden unexpected change, or a reasonable request coming from the NT wife. And suddenly the nervous system crosses the threshold. From the outside, it looks like, well, that reaction was completely disproportionate. But neurologically, the system was already at 95% capacity. It was already primed and ready for explosion. The meltdown was simply the last straw. Let's talk about why emotional check-ins fail. This is where many neurodiverse couples run into trouble. The neurotypical wife senses tension building. She may say something like, hey, you seem stressed, or are you okay? But the autistic husband genuinely answers, yeah, I'm fine. Later, a meltdown occurs, and the neurotypical wife feels confused and betrayed. Well, you said you were fine. At the moment that the question was asked, the autistic husband may not have had access to that internal information yet. His brain had not translated body signals into conscious awareness. So the check-in question fails, not because of dishonesty. He's not lying or trying to cover something up. It's not emotional avoidance. It was his sensory blindness to internal signals. Now let's talk about the misinterpretation that damages neurodiverse relationships. Without neurological understanding, couples often create painful interpretations. The neurotypical spouse may think, well, he doesn't care about my feelings, or he's emotionally cold, or he's choosing not to communicate. But what's actually happening is interoceptive blindness. The ASD partner is not ignoring emotional buildup. He simply cannot detect it early enough. And this changes the entire narrative. Instead of, well, he's uncaring, the reality becomes his brain can't sense rising emotional pressure. And that shift matters enormously because resentment softens when we replace moral judgment with neurological understanding. Now, let's look at what meltdowns feel like from the autistic side. Many autistic adults describe meltdowns as feeling like a sudden flood of adrenaline, overwhelming cognitive noise, loss of verbal processing, inability to organize thoughts. And they often say things like, well, I suddenly couldn't think, or I felt trapped, or my brain was shut down. That's not intentional behavior. It's the nervous system entering protective overload mode. The brain essentially says this: too much input, shut down systems. Now, and that's why after meltdowns, your ASD husband may feel confused, ashamed, exhausted, and regretful because he didn't see the storm coming either. And in many cases, he feels embarrassed after the fact. Let's talk about how couples can bridge the interoception gap. The key is shifting from emotion-based monitoring to data-based monitoring. Instead of asking, well, how do you feel? Both parties should be tracking objective signals. For example, noticing reduced verbal processing, slower responses, increased irritability, cognitive fatigue, sensory withdrawal, decision paralysis. These become external indicators of rising stress. Some of my clients even use simple rating systems. For example, a daily check-in scale from 1 to 10, not emotional check-ins, energy level check-ins, or we could call it brain bandwidth check-ins. For example, today I'm at a 4. That signals limited cognitive capacity. Another strategy is scheduled decompression time. Autistic nervous systems often require predictable recovery windows to release built-up pressure. That could include quiet alone time, reduced sensory input, structured routines, physical movement or stimming. Think of it like releasing pressure from the pressure cooker before it explodes. Now let's talk about the big picture. When couples understand interoception differences, something very powerful happens. The story changes. Instead of, well, he just suddenly explodes, it comes out of nowhere. The story becomes, okay, my ASD spouse's nervous system can't sense the storm until it's already overwhelming. That understanding opens the door to new strategies, new compassion, and new teamwork. Because neurodiverse relationships succeed not by pretending both brains work the same, but by learning how two different nervous systems can support each other. Now, if this concept helped you better understand neurodiverse relationships, let me know in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into this neuroscience of autistic neurotypical relationships, make sure you subscribe. Because the more we understand the ASD brain, the less we personalize behaviors that were never personal to begin with. And that's where real healing in neurodiverse marriages often begin. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.